Well, I'd like to introduce our first guest now. There's a lot I could say. He's had a storied career, and even before that, he's arguably maybe the greatest collegiate tennis player of all time, perhaps athlete. I've gotten to know him very well. He's a tremendous gentleman, and just a really great sportsman out there. And I know he's been an inspiration to me. I'm sure everyone out there today, regardless of your age or level of play, can learn a ton from the guy. So without wasting any more time, can I please, with great pleasure, bring on Mr. Steve Johnson?
Hey everybody, how are you? You think as an 18-year-old you have a lot of things figured out in life and whatnot, but college was incredible for me. It gave me a chance to mature. It gave me a chance to really put into perspective what I wanted to do with my life. Tennis was a passion of mine, and then it became at the forefront of something that was a realistic possibility. And I really put in an incredible work ethic, dedication, and discipline I learned in college, and I've really translated that. And I think that's the biggest jump in my game that I've made from juniors to college, and then college to now where I am today.
When you were growing up in juniors, when did you sort of start taking the game more seriously? When did the practice go from just sort of a hobby to, you know what, I'm really going to start working at this?
It's for me, I was, if I look back, and I'm going off of memory here, so I could be way off, but, in the 12s and 14s, if we're looking way back, I was, one in the country, one in the section, and I was kind of at the top. And then, I'd get to 15 and 16 and 17. And that's when, maybe some of the talent kind of doesn't get you as far as it once did. And, as people, we start to grow and mature, and our bodies kind of take shape and take form. And, I wasn't that good in the 16s, and I wasn't that good in the 18s. And, I'm saying relatively, I was probably top 10 in the section, top 30 in the country. I think I made round of 16 at Kalamazoo my last year as my best result. So, I didn't, kind of make that transition till college. So I saw the older guys on the team and their work ethic and what they did on a daily basis. And, I didn't do any of that really in the 16s and 18s. And I really wish I would have, kind of had that base and some of that discipline going forward. But, thankfully I've really, I got that very quickly in college, and, turned a corner there. This is the advice that I wish, I would have, I'm sure I've gotten it, but I wish I would have maybe taken a bit more in the juniors was, you have to be practical about your wins and losses. It's not about right now, I can't tell you any of my wins and losses in the juniors really at this point, so, in the grand scheme of things, it's so important at the time, but, when you get older, you just want to make sure that your game is progressing, your mentality, your maturity, your physicality, everything is going in the right direction. Because because whatever your end point is in tennis, or whatever your goal is, that's what you got to look for. You can't look for, everything at the moment. You got to work for, if you want to make a college team, if you want to try and play professional, if you want to just, get to a college and, become a lawyer or doctor, any of these things, you got to have, your goal set in mind, and everybody's different.
There's a huge jump between, getting into, let's say, from the lower ranks into the top 200. Then there's a jump into the top 100, top 50, top 20. Each jump is quite big. What do you feel are the biggest gaps that you need to overcome when you hit those hurdles?
It's consistency. I feel like, if you look at a guy who's 200, they're a darn good tennis player. They have all the skills. They have it, but they just don't do it either in the big moments as much as the guys 100 who are ranked 100, or they don't do it as consistent week in and week out. Not every loss is created equal, but how you deal with it for me is the most important. You got to focus on what you did well, how you can, grow from these, wins and losses, and just kind of take that into each and every, match or tournament or week, following a tough loss. I think that's how resilience is created, and then that's a big part of the sport.
Into a little more detail, is there something you can give our audience out there as far as, maybe an important aspect to focus on, whether it's the shoulder turn or whatever you think?
Yeah, I think for me, the most important thing is getting a good shoulder turn. You don't want to kind of, you want to keep a straight on the backhand slice. You want to keep the plane as straight as possible on the swing. You don't want to have, as you would, a normal backhand, you kind of have that loop from low to high to get the topspin. For me on the slice, you want to stay, kind of right, maybe below my left shoulder since I'm righty, and I want to go through the ball as flat as possible to kind of get that, that penetrating hard slice kind of through the court. So for me, it's a great shoulder turn, great footwork, and then, committing to the shot and committing all the way through the ball.
What is the most important thing you've learned from your journey?
Resilience. Life and tennis will kick you down here and there, and throw you a curveball, and it's all about how I feel like you deal with that adversity and how you come out with it, hopefully stronger on the other side. And it's a hard part of life. It's a hard part of tennis, but you got to just focus on, is trying to stay positive and focus on, what you can control. So for me, being a resilient, human and person out on the tennis court is incredibly important. What was different about your father as a coach than most parents that are coaches, just in general? And, for me, my dad was my coach growing up. He was he was my coach until the end. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. He was always somebody that I could call day and night for any advice, for any type of, assurances, or if I was doubting myself or whatnot. So for me, it was, we always, when we were on the court, we focused on, the coaching side of things. And then when we left the courts, he was, my dad. We didn't, kind of mix that too often. So I was very lucky,